All right. So back to drawing accurate graphs. This time we're going to look at more challenging graphs and finding solutions using our calculators. So we've seen a lot of times that when we're graphing, we want to look for our key points. Remember, these are intercepts. So when x equals 0, figuring out what y is, or when y equals 0, figuring out what x is. We also want to find points of intersection, maxes and mins. All of those are important. Okay. What else do you think is important? So I'm going to leave this for you to think about, but I'm going to point out that your course syllabus gives you some hints. So when we graph, we're going to use our calculator, and then we're going to use our table of values to help us figure out the best window. We're going to look for the y-intercept. So remember, in a table of values, I can come into my table settings and put in start at 0. So straight away I'm going to see the y-intercept because that's when x is 0. Looking for where y is 0, well, I can look at my points to try and see where the y becomes 0. And in this graph, I can see that I'm getting closer and closer to 0, but it looks like I'm never actually hitting 0, which tells me that this graph doesn't have a y-intercept. Sorry, it doesn't have an x-intercept because my y value is never becoming 0. My table of values tells me then that for y values, I don't need any negative y values, but I'll put in maybe 1 to help me see it. Again, going back to my table settings, let's go jump up to when x is 5 and see that my values are already really big. So when I'm thinking about making my values then, my window, I could go with, let's do maybe -5 to 15 for my x values. My y values, I could have a little bit negative, but I want to have a whole lot that's positive. So I'm going to say 100,000. And then because it's such a big number, I'm going to count by, let's say, 5,000s. So the more that we think about our scale, the easier it is to see on our calculator. Oops, graph. So if I had left this at 1, trying to go all the way up to 100,000, I wouldn't have been able to see anything because I would have had so many lines here. But this scale was really nice for me, so now I can see my graph. Local max mins, x-intercepts. So again, we had no x-intercept, but we did have a y-intercept that was 200, and I have no local maxes or mins on this graph.